Hello, I'm Jonathan Gornstein. Welcome to the Industrial Insider. My guest today will be talking about roofing. As you know, it's a hot topic. Considering the recent storms we've had and property damages, it's always a topic of discussion. Did you know roofs and parking lot are a huge factor for people looking to buy and lease properties? Roofs can collapse a deal at any point. My guest today is Howard Glowinsky, president of Elite Roofing. Welcome to the podcast, Howard.
Thank you, John. Good to see you again.
Thank you. You as well. Why don't we start off with a little bit about Elite, what type of services you offer, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Our space is really the commercial industrial market. So we deal with landlords, property managers, contractors, project managers, both with new projects and replacement of existing. Roofs expire. So whether it's somewhere in the range of 20 years is an expected life of a roof on a single layer roof that would have to get replaced. So there's an obsolescence factor. We do service as well as installation work and repairs and due diligence. We do a lot of due diligence for the for brokerage community and for others.
So, for example, a client ties up a building. We're under a contract during the due diligence. They'll call you. You'll assess the roof and essentially give them a report.
Right. As you mentioned earlier, roofs and parking lots are a big factor in industrial buildings. It's been said by many that those are major considerations. So people want to know what the roof is like. Sometimes they'll get an opinion from an engineering firm. And a lot of times they'll err on the side of caution, condemn a roof that maybe doesn't need to be replaced or doesn't need to be done all at once, can be phased out or can last a few years with some catch up of deferred maintenance and whatever it is. So that's where we come in. We try to bring some creative solutions to the table and help people, get deals done and move forward, do what they have to do, whether it's a mortgage company on their back or whatever they're doing.
So you'll focus on investors, users, and potentially tenants looking to go into a building. Because if a tenant's looking to lease space and the roof is in not good condition, they want to be aware of that type of condition before they actually take possession of the space, correct?
For sure. Imagine if you're a food processing company and you have HACCP or you have people in these different industries. You got some product inside, you get damage on your product. It's a shooting match with the landlord, and you don't want to tenants don't want to go down that road. If they have the choice between two buildings, although there's not too many choices today, and with our vacancy rates at sub 1%, but when they have choices, they'd rather have a building, all else being equal, with a roof that's in serviceable condition rather than one that's at the end of its life.
Perfect. So let's jump into the backstory of some of the, I guess, challenges that you have on a day-to-day basis. Do you want to talk about some of the things that or some of the walls that you're running into on a daily basis currently? Supply chain costs, labor, like maybe some of those are points that you should talk about.
Sure. So I would say the first thing is that there's a lot of pent-up demand. So we're seeing a lot of new construction in the industrial market. As you know, we just mentioned the vacancy rates are so low.
Right.
There's a lot of projects that got delayed during COVID, and they're just getting out of the ground and up to the roof level at them now. So a lot of things coming together all at once. I know you did some work up in Addison Hall in that complex.
Yeah.
We just finished. We're just in the process of finishing two buildings up there, 100,000 square foot each. And there's a number of other projects that are just coming on board all at the same time. So that's issue number one: pent up demand. There's supply chain issues in our industry. We had a call about a week and a half ago with JM, John Manville, and their representative in the States who looks after Canada, the regional director for Canada. And Emily was telling us how it's a big issue. The big warehouses, the 1 million square foot plus warehouses from Amazon and what's that other REIT, Prologis, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a number of these big distribution centers that are getting built out, and you're seeing them out in Milton, out that way as well. You see them up to 400. There's Broccolini has a big project coming up or whatever. They just draw so much material out of the system, and
Right.
It's hard to supply. And over time, like in the last 10 years, the thickness of insulation that's going down on projects has only increased. They keep reassessing the way to measure the R value, And used to be they measured it with they used to jab it when it came off the assembly line when the board was still hot, and they got
Right.
a certain rate, a reading. And then they went to a reading over 6 months, and then they went to a reading over 5 years. So when you go to reading over 5 years, it actually changes more from 1 month at the time of production to 6 months than over 6 months to 5 years. But anyways, you have to keep buying more ISO insulation to get the same R value. Plus the building codes have changed. Now you
Right.
need R30 to get on industrial buildings. You need multiple layers of insulation. So the board feet counts are just going up and up in the bigger warehouses, drawing more supply out of the system. And it's more and more difficult. In the States, they're waiting up to a year or more to get material. They have to book jobs a year in advance. It's crazy.
So how do developers manage that process, or even how do you manage that process when you have to book things a year out? Like you know what your sales are going to be in 12 months from now? Isn't that nearly impossible?
It's not only roofing, it's everything, right? So they have to do the same thing with the steel. Like, I understand steel, we don't book it 12 months out, or precast, like, you're not getting it either.
Right.
So it is a big factor in industrial. They have to be organized, but new construction is only one part of the problem. If you
Right.
look at the replacement roof, let's say someone has a building and they're getting a tenant, or they're getting a mortgage, mortgage refinance or whatever it is on the building, or
Right.
some financing. They want to leverage up the building, take some money, and you do something else with it. Mortgage company puts a holdback on the building, and they need a roof done. If you're stuck and you can't get material, it's a problem.
Right. Right. And that just creates more issues if you don't take care of those type of things, especially on a replacement roof.
Yeah, it delays the whole thing. You're buying a building, you want to do the roof before you move in, or before a tenant moves in. Sometimes these decisions are taken off the table. You don't have the luxury or the freedom of making those decisions anymore.
I'm going to put you on the spot with this question. I don't know. It's more of a selfish question for being in the broker business. We constantly being asked, how much does a roof cost? And obviously costs have changed dramatically over the last 24 months. Probably about 24 months ago or 36 months, it was always $10 a foot. What do you suggest that brokers use, or a ballpark number that people should use per square foot for a roof these days?
Okay, again, you have to know what the roof is. If it's a food processing facility with penetrations all over the place, it's a different than if it's a warehouse that has a couple of rooftop units in the office, and otherwise few just uniheaters and roof drains. But if it's a fairly wide open single level building with parapet heights that are a foot or lower, and not 4-foot high parapets and elaborate things, I would say you probably should be carrying something in the $12 range, and it can go up from there depending on if it's multi-layer. That's a single layer of roof. You got to take off 2 layers. It's more expensive. If you're upgrading insulation, again, might be a different story.
And then, do you have any recommendations on terms of the actual roof? A lot of times we hear about rubber roofs or gravel roofs. Like, would you consider one better than the other, or do you stick to one type of material over another, or it's all you pick a roof based on the current situation of your client?
Good question. In terms of the types of membranes that are our go-to solutions. Listen, our company's been around for over 60 years, and started by my grandfather, and my father's still active in the business.
Right.
And I guess having the experience of seeing what works over time, over a long time, and we're now I've been doing this already, closing on 30 years. So I'm seeing roofs come up that we did before that are coming up for replacement. You see which ones last and which ones don't last. And I think you have to look at every situation and assess. Some buildings are access issues, so you can't do a black line roof. You can't. Right. You have to go to a membrane. Forget about getting gravel in there. Forget about setting up to do certain things. Others, they have an issue with flame sensitivity. You can't use an open flame. You need everything done with cold adhesive, so you have to use a cold adhesive solution. You're again looking to different membrane solutions rather than a typical 4-ply roof. 4-ply roof with gravel, we feel, is still the like an excellent system and the best weathering system. It weathers very, very well and absorbs foot traffic and it's just we find that that's an excellent system. Some of the other membranes, single ply membranes, we're finding that they don't have the lifespan. If you look at life cycle costing and other things, we're finding that you're only getting up to 15 years of life. You start looking at 15 years versus 20 to 25 years on a roof. It makes a difference if you're an owner for the long term, as most of our clients are.
Right.
Care about those things. It's not just a general contractor who's building a building the cheapest possible cost. You're building a Home Depot location or Canadian Tire.
Right.
And you got a warranty of 5 years, and the budget for replacement comes from a different pocket than the budget for new construction. It's not like that.
Right. What would you recommend on how to minimize stress from a client with regards to their roof? Like, what do you suggest? Like, maintenance program, a roofer to take a look at it every 12 months. Like, what is the typical program that you feel that will really help clients manage and take the stress of managing a roof over time?
Okay, so managing roof over time, I think that it's important to look at a roof as an asset, no different than you would look at your car, or no different than you would look at, you're going to the dentist and things like that. You have to do periodic maintenance. And especially if your needs, you're very sensitive what happens inside the building. You can't have any water come in. It's a food processing or whatever it is, and or you've got sensitive materials that are stored in there, or you have a roof that's over 10 years of age. Once the roof gets to be over 10 years of age, then you should start doing something at least annually. If you have overgrown trees or other factors that lead to vegetative organic debris building up, especially on the roof, around roof drains, that stuff has to be maintained, has to be cleaned. If you don't do that, you're just looking for trouble. You're going to have a high water levels. You're going to have leaks and places that should never leak. Small problems when they're detected. Avoid larger problems much later on. We recommend sometimes infrared roof scans, going and assessing the roof. We just did one last week, Sunday night, on a commercial property in Pickering for a client. He felt he had to replace the roof, and at this time we're not getting there. Like, this infrared scan is telling us different. So we use the tools that we have. We make assessments. We use the infrared scans where we can, and you have to do planned maintenance.
So I guess the infrared scan, how long have you been using infrared scan in the roofing business for? Is it a relatively new technology?
No. We actually did a blog article on it with Brian Jastrow was our guest from Iris Maintenance Solutions. The technology comes from Sweden. I think came out in the 60s, but they've been perfecting it. But certainly for the last 20 years, it's a great tool in a toolbox to pull out in certain situations when you need it. We had a building on Torbram in Brampton, and we were able to go in. We did a client wanted to assess an older building. We did an infrared scan. Came up that there was an area that was soiled. It wasn't leaking. There's a big area of soiled insulation. We went and did a repair. We saved them from a much larger repair, or potentially a roof replacement that would have to be done years earlier than necessary.
Right. I want to say thank you for joining me on the Industrial Insider, Howard. If you have any questions, please feel to reach out to me directly. My number is 416-471-0904, or you can shoot me an email at jonathan@leonard.com. And thanks again for tuning in to the Industrial Insider. Have a great day.